In this video, I'm going to be talking about the ghosts of the Comedy Store. You might hear some cans rattle around. I need to clean my car out. The ghosts of the Comedy Store. I just binge watched like every ghost story online concerning the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, California. It used to be the most popular club in LA in the 40s and 50s, and Bugsy Siegel the gangster ran it, and apparently, according to Joe Rogan, countless people were killed in the basement probably, and that might attribute to the fact that there legitimately is a ghost, if not multiple ghosts, at the Comedy Store. I'm going to be visiting the Comedy Store in a couple months, and I've actually been planning this for like a year. And I wanted to go last time I was in the area, but I didn't because I ran out of time because my AC in my car broke and I had to fix it, and it was $300. But thanks to the support of the subscribers and Patreon patrons, people that buy the shirt, and outside pledgers who just donate a lot. And that's one guy. And that one guy greatly helped me out. He doesn't even know how much. But I had to cut it short because I ran out of gas money. I was going to sleep in my car. And I'm probably going to be doing this. I'm driving to a location right now in my car. The Comedy Store is legitimately haunted. Let me just give a quick rundown of the stories I heard. Bobby Lee, comedian. You've seen him on Mad TV. He has a podcast, Tiger Belly. He's all over the place. Talented guy. He's a spiritual guy, too. He believes in spirits. Matter of fact, he says that he was haunted, or at least his house that he grew up in was haunted. But that's a different story. We're talking about the Comedy Store. So he's open, and he has had ghost encounters before. He said that he parked his car at the Comedy Store parking lot and went in a friend's car to Bakersfield to do a stand-up comedy show there. And then he was driven back, and he got back like at 3 or 4 a.m. And him and his friend are in the parking lot of the Comedy Store at 3 or 4 a.m. And they both look up, and they both see this in the window. A glowing face with no facial features, wearing a hat, in a suit, with his hands pressed against the glass. They both saw it. It's a freaking ghost. And Bobby Lee calls this ghost Gus. I don't know where he got the name Gus. Perhaps someone else at the Comedy Store also calls him Gus. The second time Bobby Lee saw Gus, he was at the Comedy Store around 3 a.m. And he's playing the piano in the main room. Or the original room, I mean. And he's a really good pianist. He's like a trained pianist. Bobby Lee, very talented pianist. And he's playing some melody he's just making up. And Gus, the ghost, in a distant hallway, Bobby Lee sees him, and full-blown sees him walking towards him. And he's so scared he gets up and he runs around another direction. And then when he walks back, the ghost was gone. But he describes the ghost like this. It was wearing a gold suit and the same hat. Bobby Lee calls it a top hat, but he, in another video, distinguishes that it's not a tall Abraham Lincoln top hat. It's kind of a short top hat, which brings me to the conclusion perhaps Bobby Lee doesn't know what type of hat it was. Maybe it's a short top hat like you see Johnny Depp wear in the movie Dead Man. Or perhaps it's a gangster hat that has nothing to do with the top hat. It's hard to say. But he basically says it was dressed in 40s, 50s attire, except for the fact that the suit was gold and his face kind of glows. Very interesting. So this ghost, Gus the Ghost, is the Comedy Store ghost. I hope to, in any way, shape, or form, experience the presence of this ghost. I'm going to try to do a mini investigation, but I'm not holding my breath on them allowing me to turn on the cameras. I'm just going to be a tourist from their perspective, and the rules are going to apply to everyone. I don't think cameras are allowed inside the Comedy Store. But even though that's the case, I'll take photographs of the outside, and maybe I'll do a sidewalk investigation. That's kind of what I do, is sidewalk investigations, because a lot of places do not allow you to bring cameras inside. And that's the policy, that's the deal, not a big deal. But I'm even going to ask the people there in charge. I'm going to say, would it be okay if I were to walk the hallways and just film my Mel meter? It's a ghost detector. It just spikes if a potential ghost is in the area. Would it be okay for me to walk the hallway and just film for a few seconds, just the meter itself? And we will see what happens. They might say no, they might say yes. They did say yes to people that it did investigate in the year 2011. They investigated the basement, what Joe Rogan claims is probably the most haunted place. But Bobby Lee says the most haunted place is probably Mitzi's old office. Now, Mitzi has, and rest in peace, she passed away, but even when she was alive, she didn't open up the office for 30 years, according to Bobby Lee. There was a particular office that wasn't opened for 30 years straight because apparently of how haunted it was. Mitzi Shore, apparently, according to Bobby Lee, hired psychics, mediums, cleansers, even from France, to cleanse the place so the building was free of any negative entities, or any spirits of any kind. But it never worked. Every year she would hire them, and it never worked. Year after year, I guess, she hired people to cleanse the building. It supposedly never worked. Bobby Lee said, and he heard stories, and he said he'd never been in the office. It was always locked. He said he could see through the glass a little bit, but it's locked. He said the stories are that papers, books, items in that office poltergeist haunted, move around on their own. And it freaked Mitzi out so much she locked it up. I wonder if it's been opened. You know, the Comedy Store is a gold mine for ghost investigators. I noticed Aaron Goodwin of the Ghost Adventures crew is following the Comedy Store. The Comedy Store recently retweeted me. I'm very happy about that because, yes, I'm going to go visit them. I'll throw my name in the hat for a stand-up, but I doubt my name's going to get picked. I think I'm going to go there 2 days in a row. I'll throw my name in there 2 days in a row. If I do stand up, I'll probably make jokes about ghosts. I'm writing a couple ghost jokes just in case I get picked. If I don't get picked, no big deal. If I don't get picked, I promise you, I will be sharing my ghost jokes in a future episode. I'm wearing my ghost t-shirt. Check out my t-shirts. Thank you for checking out my Teespring. I think I'm gonna add some new t-shirts in the future. We will see what happens. Wow, there's a storm. It is storming. All right, so the Comedy Store, that's just the tip of the iceberg concerning Comedy Store ghost stories. Wow. Levitation. 2 people have been levitated at the ghost store. 2 people levitated. Bobby Lee shares these stories. If it wasn't for Bobby Lee, I wouldn't have known about these stories. All credit goes to Bobby Lee for sharing these stories. Bobby Lee said, 2 comedians were sleeping on the stage. Obviously, Mitzi was very nice to them and allowed them to sleep on the stage. Kinnison, the guy that yelled, I can't do it. I can't even try. But the guy that was geniusly, he yelled during his act. And rest in peace, he passed away in a car accident. Kinnison, I think his last name was. I apologize, can't remember his first name. But there was 2 comedians sleeping on the stage, and one comedian who's still alive was able to tell Bobby Lee this story. He woke up and saw Kinnison levitating 4 feet off the ground, upside down, being held by his leg. Very freaky stuff, dude. Supposedly this ghost is very dominant and territorial about the stage itself, or maybe the stages, and I don't know which stage this was. But yikes. Full-blown levitation to 4 feet off the ground. So this other comedian saw Kinnison sleeping, levitating 4 feet off the ground, his head hanging down, his leg being the only thing being held up by an invisible entity, or maybe multiple invisible entities. This guy was a big guy. So he falls and on his back, and then he wakes up, and the other guy tells him what happened. Rest in peace. He passed away in a car accident. Perhaps not long after. Very scary story. Almost impossible, right? Well, an actor/comedian was closing the Comedy Store. He was 100% by himself. He said he didn't believe in ghosts until he saw the stool on the stage by itself dragged across the entire stage at night. And yikes. So there's a poltergeist that dominates the stage, is territorial of the stage. And yikes. I don't know why and how, but there's a poltergeist at the Comedy Store. I've personally firsthand witnessed poltergeist activity. I'm not crazy. It actually happened. If you're crazy, I don't identify with you. I'm 0% crazy. If you're on drugs or alcohol and you've seen something like that, I don't identify with you. The only time I've ever seen poltergeist activity was when I was stone cold sober and fully awake. So I don't identify with people that have been on something and experienced something crazy, because I was 100% sober when I experienced what I experienced. And it's why I'm so fascinated by these poltergeist stories at the Comedy Store. I want to go there. I can feel spirits when they walk through me. Atheists are going to say, that's crazy, man, you're crazy. It's a legitimate gift I have. I don't consider myself psychic or a medium, except maybe a tiny bit psychic. And perhaps I'll be able to feel Gus the ghost walk through me. If so, I'll be able to judge and tell whether it's a negative, a neutral, or a positive spirit. We will see. I'll definitely report what I find there, even if it's just laughs. I plan on staying for the whole show and just watching the comedians give an amazing job. Perhaps Gus the ghost sits in the back and watches every show. Perhaps he's forced to. Perhaps he can't leave the premises. Other Gus the ghost stories. Now, we don't know if it's Gus every time, but it's something we can just say, a ghost. Joey Diaz, when he's talking to Bobby Lee, said he saw a ghost at the Comedy Store. Joey Diaz said he was watching from the hallway or from the back, from the sidelines, the comedians doing their act, and he's getting ready to perform after them. And he said he saw like a shadow blocking the light. And he turned to see what that shadow was. And it was a guy wearing like a suit and a cape. And when Joey Diaz tried to make out what his face looked like, he like a talking Phantom of the Opera type cape shrouded his face and disappeared into the shadows. Very, very interesting. Probably Gus the Ghost. I don't think he said he was wearing a hat, but he was wearing a suit. So very fancy ghost. Speaking of fancy ghosts, there was a waitress, I believe, working at the Comedy Store. She shared this story. And this is how the story goes. She wanted to take a 30-minute nap. I guess no one was in the Comedy Store. Maybe she's just prepping or closing. I don't know the details. All I know is she wanted to take a 30-minute nap in one of the booths real quick. So she took a brief snooze. And during the process, she was awoken by some music. Very, very loud music. And yeah, she was there by herself, 100% alone. So what she did was she looked up out of the booth she was sleeping in, and she saw many people in suits and dresses dancing to the music on the main room floor. And she thought it was people that broke in and were having a party. So she set the alarm and ran outside and called the cops, or perhaps the alarm called the cops. So she waited in the parking lot. The cops showed up. She told them what happened. They went inside. She went inside with the cops. No one was there. We're talking full-blown haunted mansion at Disneyland. Ghosts dancing to music. Amazing. Wow. I mean, that's like a blast from the past. Perhaps a scene like that happened in the 40s or 50s. She was witnessing it. I believe when we go to sleep, we do go into obviously a REM type state, but even when we wake up, we can still be in a hazy enough state to be able to see and hear things in the spiritual plane that are actually there. So even though when she was fully wide awake and her and the cops couldn't see possible, the ghosts were still dancing. But that is the most amazing story I've ever heard concerning the Comedy Store. A full-blown party of dancing ghosts, like straight out of The Shining. Like Jack Nicholson's character. Jack Torrance walks into the Golden Room at the Overlook Hotel and sees all the ghosts dancing, and he doesn't think much of it because he's in a crazy state at that point. But yikes. That is amazing. There's a second levitation of a second comedian lifted up while he was in the hallway, apparently to the ceiling, to the point where it messed up his spine and he had to get spinal surgery. That's the most damage I've ever heard of a poltergeist doing to a human being. So that is very interesting. Bobby Lee said the particular comedian was very shifty and very shady. I can't remember his name at this moment, but he's not famous. Perhaps he wasn't funny. Jay Moore, who was on stage at the Comedy Store, said he felt icy on half of his face and body. He felt really cold ice. Again, on the stage. Very territorial this ghost is. And the ghost likes certain comedians and dislikes other comedians. Jay Moore is a pretty funny guy. He was on SNL. He's pretty funny. And he said he's doing his bit and no one's laughing. Zero. The audience isn't laughing at all. He says almost the ghost froze the audience. And so he said he turns to what he believes the ghost, where he believes the ghost is, and says, "Hey, ghost, get out of here." And then he turns to the audience and he says, "You know this place is haunted, right?" And the whole audience breaks out into laughter. He said, as if it was his final bit, as if it was his final joke in his whole set when he just started. He said they broke out in a nervous laughter or whatever, and he was actually reacting to an actual ghost, and he was improvising with the ghost. And another comedian told Jay Moore, the ghost likes you. So if you feel a bunch of cold all over your body or your face, the ghost likes you. Very interesting. Very interesting. I got to go to this Comedy Store. I understand I probably will not experience anything. Hundreds of comedians go and leave and have zero ghost stories and remain atheists. So it doesn't guarantee anything. But I gotta go. I'm gonna go. Stay tuned for that Comedy Store episode. Whether I go or not, or I'm gonna go. Whether I can get footage inside or not, we will see. I will guarantee do a sidewalk investigation. I'll even try to get the window shot of where Bobby Lee saw Gus the ghost. I'm going to zoom into that window. And maybe I'll go so far as to try to recreate the time that he saw it. I don't know. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to break any boundaries. I just want to have a good time, watch some comedians. I'm a big fan of comedy. I wanted to be a comedian about 10 years ago, and I wrote about 25 jokes. And thinking about those jokes now, they're not that great. But I am going to write a couple ghost jokes. If I don't get to mention them at the Comedy Store, I will share them in a future video. I thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More episodes coming soon. Until next time, this has been John Rasmus. Be seeing you.